أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين الغرر الميامين. A question that has occupied many observers, analysts, and certainly politicians is, what draws millions of people to the shrine of Imam al-Hussein? We're talking about one of the biggest gatherings of human beings anywhere around the world. One that draws no less than 12 million people. Every year, we have on average another million being added to the tally. It's a human avalanche that takes the world by storm. And today there's not a media outlet, there's not a TV channel, there's not a respectable, reputable magazine that can ignore what happens in Karbala, especially towards the commemorations of the 40th day after the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein. The almost hypnotic nature of how people are attracted to Imam al-Hussein, like moths to a flame, is something that's quite unique and very difficult to describe or even understand. And so the usual answer is, it's love. And of course it can't be anything other than love, because why else would people risk their lives with almost certain death, giving up everything, saying goodbye to their family and friends, bringing the entire nation to a standstill? Those of you who go to any other city during the Arba'in in Iraq, you'll know that the entire city shuts down. There'll be no grocers to buy food from, no restaurants, no cafes. The whole towns come to a complete standstill because everybody's on their way to Karbala. So it can't be anything other than love. In fact, it is love at its most pure, most pristine, and most powerful and most unadulterated form. It is love for Imam al-Hussein, but not so much for Imam al-Hussein and his ideals and principles and in him as a person, but love of the ability to go to his shrine and salute him, to offer our salutations to what the Imam stood for. It is love in the most affectionate forms. It's the kind of love that no politician has ever been able to create within his subjects. No Machiavellian philosopher has ever been able to instill in the hearts of people, and no Hollywood celebrity will ever be able to manufacture on the silver screen. It's the kind of love that has caused an equal and opposite reaction. It's the kind of love that has created an almost equally powerful hatred and enmity towards Imam al-Hussein and his principles, as well as his followers and lovers. It's the kind of love that warrants the most venomous scorn that you see in the hearts of the enemies of Imam al-Hussein. Because when you are endowed with this kind of love, it's only natural to have people becoming envious. Those evil individuals whose hearts are filled with disease will only envy Imam al-Hussein, and they will envy his followers because of the sheer amount of love that they have for their master. So the question again, why do people do this? Why do their lives? Not to support the Imam, not to save his life, not to go to his rescue, but to visit his shrine. And this has been a practice for centuries now. You've all heard the stories. I don't want to go there. People giving their hands as a form of taxation that was imposed on anyone who would visit the Imam, as a penalty for anyone who wants to express their love for the Imam. It happened during the time of Al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi, and it's been a practice ever since, except that now people don't have you offer your hand as a penalty or as a tax to visit the Imam, but the tax and the penalty is still there in the form of all these IEDs that are going off, in the form of all the explosives that go off, killing many, many people. Someone was telling me just a few days ago, he was saying that I feel as though the terrorists have decided to back off and they're no longer interested in blowing people up as they perform the visitation to Imam al-Hussein. I said, why? He said, because they've realized that the more people they kill, the more people are going to be motivated to visit the Imam. I said, that's not the case whatsoever. It's not as though the terrorists sit down and they would have a brainstorming session where they decide whether to detonate a bomb in the midst of a group of pilgrims, and they decide against the idea because, as it turns out, the more people they kill, the more people are motivated and encouraged to go. It's just a natural product of their inability and inefficiency to carry on with their acts of terrorism that's probably got them thinking about the fact that this is not achieving anything. And so the question again is that if it's love, then where does reason lie? And I think that especially in these settings, it's important for us to think about these matters that have epistemological value, but at the same time they have a trickling effect. They apply pretty much in pretty much every discipline, every sphere, every aspect of our lives. We always find ourselves making a distinction between faith and reason, and the place and the position of faith and the position of reason, especially within the context of Imam al-Hussein, what he did and what motivates all of these people to visit his shrine, and what causes this tumultuous movement around the world, this heat that is all of a sudden reignited in the hearts of anyone who has ever come to appreciate Imam al-Hussein, anyone who has ever come to know what he did, and anyone who's ever been exposed to the values manifested by the Imam. Because love doesn't come out of a vacuum. If there is love for Imam al-Hussein, there must be a basis for that love. And so the question is, what is that foundation? What is it that generates this unconditional, unadulterated, pristine, affectionate kind of love that no one has been able to achieve anywhere else around the world, and anywhere in history for that matter? And this is important for us to understand, because we're trying to make sense of not just the quote-unquote divine element in the movement of Imam al-Hussein, but rather the human aspect of the Imam, the humanity of Hussein. People are drawn to Imam al-Hussein because of his ideals and principles, because of the fact that he called on to the way of God, because the highest ideal in the life of Hussein was God, because his message throughout the movement from beginning to end was God. It started with God, it ended with God, and in between it had nothing to do with anything other than God. So that is important, and we can all relate to that. We can all kind of try and understand it, though it's difficult. We all admit, and I think at some stage even the most brilliant minds will come to the realization that it's very difficult to understand what motivated Imam al-Hussein. You realize there's obviously a difference between the motivation behind an act and the cause of an act. The cause is usually an external stimuli, a stimulus that happens outside the sphere of the act itself, whereas the motivation is more